Good morning. My name is Silvia Peppoloni. I'm a geologist, researcher at the Italian Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology. I'm fully involved in the base and applied research on geoethics, namely the investigation on the philosophical, social, and cultural aspects of earth science research and practice. I'm founding member and Secretary General of the International Association for Promoting Geoethics. We are living these difficult times of pandemic from SARS-CoV-2. There are those who are frightened, those who deny or exorcise, and those who face the reality of a life that must continue, fully aware of the need of behaving responsibly towards themselves and others. Our behaviors are the first line for intervening to reduce the infection or mitigate its effects. Moreover, there are the health workers who assist and take care of us. And then there is medical science, which in a great collective effort, even if in some cases aimed at competitive interests or seeking primacy, will sooner or later allow us getting out of this pandemic. Earth sciences or geosciences and life sciences or biosciences urge us to look at SARS-CoV-2 as a planetary effect of anthropogenic global changes that have created extensive destruction of natural environments and produced a contiguity between species responsible for the occurrence of spillovers that are those dangerous transfers of microorganisms from animals to humans. The increasingly close interconnections between human communities worldwide favor the subsequent spread of infections, with all the consequences we know well. Really an unfortunate matter, which calls everyone, no one excluded, to an assumption of responsibility. A responsibility that has to start from a reflection on the meaning and social value of concepts such as risk prevention, resilience of a community affected by a disaster, and the importance of education and scientific knowledge for the population. Reflections referring to environmental issues such as global warming and climate change, earthquakes or pollution, but also to health issues such as the current pandemic, which is closely linked to environmental issues. In fact, the new coronavirus emergency is not at all that different from environmental emergencies. The same unknowns, the same uncertainties, the same needs are at stake. And also the actors involved in this scenario are the same as in an environmental emergency. On the one hand, the scientists who are asked to provide correct information and who have the duty and responsibility to do it in the best possible way. On the other hand, the politicians who must make the most effective decisions based on the information provided by science. Furthermore, there are the mass media, which are the interface between politics, science, and the population, and which have the duty to report correct and reliable news. And finally, there are the citizens, who in a risk phase have their part of responsibility, like everyone else, to react to problems for the sake of community. So, If on the one hand they have to demand that the government works to guarantee their safety, health, and economic security, on the other hand, they have the responsibility to abide by the rules and realize that following them means reducing the risk for themselves, their loved ones, the entire community to which they belong. This is the way to be in solidarity with others, especially those who are more vulnerable to problems. And this is true if applied to an earthquake or a flood, as well as to a pandemic. But looking at the pandemic in a broader perspective, there is another great responsibility that perhaps we are not sufficiently aware of. We need to become increasingly conscious that anthropogenic global changes have produced extensive breakdowns over the past 250 years. And now we are beginning to see their negative effects on a global scale, without distinction between rich and poor countries, between responsible people and deniers. Changes are generated by our world system that nourishes social inequalities. But the bill for those changes is paid equally by everyone, from the North American or European citizens to the Amazonian indigenous people. And without our political will, it will be paid also by future generations. So we need to put issues of intragenerational and intergenerational justice in our working and political agenda. The fault of rich countries in climate disruption and in economic and social inequalities is enormous. Now, in time of pandemic, they have a great historic opportunity to restore something to the entire humanity. They have the responsibility of intervening with vaccines that must be free for all, including poor countries, without national, cultural, religious distinction. This would be a precise sign ensuring a minimum level of international solidarity as compensation for an incredible linear process that has taken place in the last 2.5 centuries to the detriment of everything and everyone except for the Western world. The sense of guilt or the arrogance of the rich world must change into authentic leadership, to be intended as honest serving to a common good, to be realized as listening to the other, as an act of inclusion to create our common future on this wonderful planet.